Good evening, everybody. I'm Kath Lloyd from Make the Change, and it's Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock-ish. I'm a little bit late, I'm afraid. And it's Let's Talk time. And what I'm going to introduce today is the title of When the Shit Really Hits the Fan, What Do You Do? Well, the thing is, everybody reacts differently. We all respond differently to different anxieties and different stresses, and we might not always respond in the same way each time. But what I want to do first of all is just think about the feelings. What are the feelings perhaps of when you are in a situation where you are totally taken by surprise. Hi Anne, lovely to see you here this week. I always like it when your face pops up because I see you most weeks, and that is really, really nice. Talk about the feelings that you might get when you are thrown or thrust or catapulted into a situation that really throws you off balance and really hits you right there. And these will be shock to start with, fright, anger perhaps, confusion, bewilderment perhaps, or just not knowing how you think or feel about something because it has shocked you so much. But the point is that when we are thrown into one of these situations, our body, our brain and our body goes back to all the connections go back to the reptilian part of our brain, which is the fight, flight or freeze situation. And it's very much about how you respond to these situations and trying to perhaps control something that you're really struggling to control. When I think back to, when my father introduced me to him deciding to have transgender reassignment, I just didn't know what to think. So I suppose I went into a freeze mode for a little bit, and then I spent a long, long time fighting it and trying to go back to the past when I felt more secure, when normal felt normal, when I sort of knew or thought I knew what was family life, our positions, my position in the family, in society, and those different sorts of things. But then more recently, I've been thrust into a situation with my son having a bad mountain bike accident, and actually I went into control mode, and so that I could cope. So it wasn't really a fight, it wasn't a flee, and it wasn't a freeze, but it was a safety mode so that I could manage, and that was my control mode. So I went into a very matter-of-fact state of mind, but I perhaps didn't look at it very realistically, because I thought, just pack a few days' clothes, it'll be fine, and then it'll all be okay, and we can pack him up and bring him back, and it'll all be okay. But then later, it's been a lot more difficult. Hi Nick, lovely to see you here. Hello Helen, nice to see you. And then in actual fact, as time has gone on, and this I really noticed at the weekend, the stronger that my son became with his recovery, that is when I started to let go a little bit And that is when I suppose I allowed myself to become a lot more in touch with what I was thinking and what I was feeling. So it's interesting, isn't it? How your body reacts, how you try and stay in control. But at some stage, you've got to let it you've got to let those feelings, those angers, those frustrations, those worries, those concerns come up, and then out. Um, and it's also about how do you manage, because in your dire straits, who do you go to first? My husband and I had this conversation, and who do you go to first when you're in a real dire situation? And you're probably all going to know who those people are. And you probably have an A list, you have a family list and a friend list, and there's probably, A list, B list, C list for all of those different people. But what is really important as well is, that when you are managing better and when you can support yourself a little bit better. Hi Sam, it's lovely to see you here. It's also important to remember that those support networks are still really important and they are still there for you when you need them. Okay, so what happens if you are going into the sort of fight, flight or freeze mode? Well, unfortunately, especially in the fight mode, well, I suppose really in all of those different modes actually, you're not going to be thinking clearly because your adrenaline is going to be taking over, and so you might be getting quite confused about how you are feeling, what you're thinking about, and like I've said before in some of these other Let's Talks, when you're in that state, sometimes you are managing the words, the right words, but you're not managing the right tone of voice and the right behavior that goes with those words. And this is where it can cause, communication breakdown between everybody because you're not putting over the right message. Okay, so communication is really, really important. And but it isn't just the short term, it's going to be in the long term as well, because you might think that you have fought the battle or you've escaped the battle, but then it's how you continue it over a long period of time. So sometimes, when we're thrust into a situation, it's a short-term situation, but other times it can be a long-term, and that is the long-term is when you have to really start pacing yourself. How are you going to manage this situation if it's going to go on for weeks, for months, maybe up to a year and onwards? Because sometimes we are unaware of how things are going to pan out. And a lot of the time when we're in these situations, we're at the mercy of other people to keep us informed of, especially if it's a medical situation, about keeping us informed about what is going on, and that can be really, really tricky. Or we're at the mercy of other members of the family telling you and passing the information along. And so this is where communication between, all the different structures in your life, all the different structures through the family unit are really, really important, or through your friendship groups. Or, if this is about work, through your different work colleagues and your management levels. So communication is really, really important. And I don't know about you, but I'm a person who likes to have honesty in my relationships. And sometimes that can be really, really difficult, especially when you are thrown into a situation where you're having to mix with people that you don't know very well, and especially when it's very, very fraught. Hi, Anne's just posted up, how important is personality and how we react to stressful situations? And that's a really, really good question, because our personality makes a huge impact. And we've talked about it before, that some people are naturally pessimistic, some people are naturally optimistic, and then some people only see the short term, some people see the long term. And it's also about what skills we have in managing. So if you are a person who has good skills, and this is where, if you can be in a control mode for a bit, you will use those skills that you have got and you will transfer to help you through the situation. It's when you are in a situation where you lose control totally that it gets very, very difficult. And it's very difficult for the people around you, but then once you have sort of come down from that heightened state, it could be very difficult to rebuild some of the communication breakdown that's gone on. Okay, so yes, you need to be true to your feelings, but also it's about trying to manage them so that you can keep a sense of control as well. I hope that has helped answer that question, Anne. And the other thing as well, it's also about situations that you've been in the past, because what's happened in the past can really make a difference to how you manage a situation today or in the future. Because every situation that we go through, we really need to learn from it. And I know that we've got to keep looking to the future and thinking better and brighter thoughts, but it's also about learning from ourselves, learning from other people. And this is something that I sort of did as a parent, is what can I take from other people, other parents that I'm seeing about me. So you might be in the supermarket and seeing a parent losing control with their child, and just thinking about how, if that was me, when I if I'm in that situation, how would I handle it? But it's about trying to remember to tap into those reflections when you really need them. And this is where, learning to use your transferable skills is really, really important. Okay. So when the shit hits the fan, it's really looking towards who is your support network. Okay. So these are going to be different for different situations. Perhaps, and also at different times of your life. And then it's about managing your state. So even in times of control, in times of fighting, in times of fleeing, your breathing is going to really, really alter, which is going to have an effect on, your mental state, and then in the long term, your physical health. So that's really, really important, because you'll find that you will breathe very, very shallowly. So, when me and my husband were having to rush up to Scotland for our son, for several days afterwards, I was still in the shock mode, but I was suddenly, I would find that several parts through the day that I felt as if I was hardly breathing, because my breathing was that shallow, because I was so focused on the situation at hand and trying to work out my own feelings around it, trying to support my son, trying to communicate to other people in the family, passing down information. And so you sort of get so wound up in your own thoughts that you actually forget what's going on inside your body. So it's about breathing properly, really, really breathing properly. Okay, and taking deep breaths. So if you do notice yourself taking very, very shallow breaths, is take some time out and to really think about what your breathing's doing. The other thing as well is about resilience. Okay, and so it's about trying to keep going through these times your regular regime. Okay, so if you are, say, a runner, if you are, you do yoga, or whether it's something about your work or you're self-employed or you go and visit somebody regularly, it's even though you've got this situation and that is taking you out of your normal routine, try and keep some of it as normal as you can. All right, because that will keep you more grounded. It will keep you in touch with you, and at some time in the future the situation will change. Okay, but it's about keeping yourself going as well as supporting the other people, so that when the situation is resolved, however that might be, that you have still got something of you to still work with. All right, so that's really, really important to be able to do that. It's going to be more difficult. So if you are a runner, for example, it may be that you have to have your running regime at a different time, or you need to perhaps make it a little bit shorter, but still have something that you do regularly. So when I was going through this situation with my son, well, still am going, what my regime was to still do my Let's Talks. All right. Other things have had to go into the, be postponed. But this is the one thing that I was going to make sure I was going to keep doing. All right. So it's about keeping something of a normal regime as you can, the best that you can. All right. Because at the end of the day, situations like this where there's big trauma, there's big anxieties, big challenges to do with your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions, your physical health, they are going to pay a toll. You're not going to be able to do everything. All right. And so it's about being realistic about what you can manage to the best of your ability. And the thing is as well, it's about explaining to people that why you can't perhaps do something that you would normally do with them, because at the end of the day people will understand if you talk to them about it. So my husband, for example, he's self-employed. He took the decision to ring all his customers and to explain to them that this is the situation. I'm not sure what's going to be happening, but I've got you booked in, and I will keep in touch with you about when I can come and do your job for you. All right. And all of his clients were very understanding, and they've accepted the situation as it is, and he's working to the best of his ability to be able to keep his customers happy. So that's one example of just how to manage it. In being hi Arga, I don't know whether I've said that correctly. I do apologize if I've said it incorrectly. It is going to be more difficult if you are employed, because you only get so much holiday. You only get so much, a boss can only give you so much time where, for special circumstances. but it's about trying to work something out with them. And this is again why communication is so important. And perhaps if you have to go into a meeting like that, it's working out what, before you go into the meeting, what is the outcome of the meeting? What do you want to try and achieve? So it's going back to what we talked about before, is begin with your end in mind. Okay, so say for example you want to reduce your hours at work because of this situation, then most bosses are really, really understanding, and if you explain it in plain and simple language, they will respect that and they will do their best for you to be able to manage it. Okay, so it is all about communication, effective communication, and being honest. Not this is where we're going back to putting your hand on your heart again, that I've talked about before. It's about being honest with yourself. All right, and there are going to be times when you're going to be split, with your responsibilities. And yes, it's difficult to be able to divide yourself. There's only one of you, and it's really difficult to be able to divide yourself, but it's about trying to do the best, again going back to trying to do the best that you can in the situation that you've got, because hi Amy, lovely to see you here. And so as we become adults, we get more roles in life, we get more responsibilities in life, and we do have to divide ourselves. And sometimes it's with me and my son, for example, it was I've got to come home because I'm looking after my parents as well. Okay, but who for a few days, who is needing the bit of support? Well, of course I want to be with my son because he is my son, but actually he's got a huge amount of support. He's safe. He's being looked after. He's got a support structure up there, which will manage very, very well. I have my ways of communicating and, being in touch with my son. But at the same time, my parents are at home. They're elderly. They're on their own. There isn't so much support there. So it's about trying to rationalise it. And this is where I really had to put my hand on my heart and really think about it in a very realistic way. Yeah. And so, that is one of the things that we have to do. Think about what's going on in your head, but also think about what's going in your heart. Rationalise it, work it all out, trying to find a system that fits the best that you can do in your life. But at the end of the day, is don't feel guilty about what decision you've had to make, because you're only doing the best that you can do. All right? So, I hope that makes a bit of sense. I hope I've answered your question, Anne. But going back to the personality, we, like I said at the beginning, we all react in different ways. And it's about trying to understand, why people react the way they do, because we don't know the full picture. So if you are struggling to manage, and you have an off day, and you are angry, and you're finding it really difficult to control it, then don't be too proud to go back to those people and just say, I'm really sorry. Because like I said before, most people will understand. And when people know the full situation, they will understand. But it's about just letting people in a little bit so that at the end of the day, they want to support you. Okay, so it's just trying not to push people away. Just try and open up a little bit and allow that support to come in, because you will gain great strength from it. Hi, Anne again. Being kinder to others and especially ourselves. Absolutely, absolutely. And in actual fact, you know, and it was through Facebook, someone posted up a little post about being, you know, on the airplane and somebody beating somebody else with a magazine because, you know, they were annoying them with the back of the chair, you know, kicking the back of the chair. And at the end of the day, yes, that person shouldn't have reacted like that, but at the end of the day, you don't know what they're going through. Okay, and that is going to be the same for you as well if you're in a really traumatic situation. Other people don't know. You know, it's the same old saying, isn't it? You know, we can't read each other's minds, and it's about just being in touch with yourself so that you can manage better, but then also being aware of what other people might be going through as well. Yeah, because, you know, when we're in dire situations, going through trauma, we do all react very, very differently. Okay, so yeah, being kinder to yourself, that's really, really important. And look after yourself, because if you can't, if you are struggling to look after yourself, how are you going to look after the other people that also need looking after? Okay, so thank you for joining me. It's been quite a long session today, and we haven't got cut off, so that's even better. And if there's anything more you want to add or ask about, then please just pop a comment in the box underneath. But also, it'd be great to know from you what you want to find out more about, because these sessions are for you guys, to help you, to support you. And so I might be missing something that you need. And the betting is that, you know, there's going to be other people out there who are needing that little bit of information as well. So it'll be great to have you with me next week. But if you fancy a trip to Bath this weekend, then Achieve at the Pump Rooms in Bath is on. I'll be there on stand 7, and I will be doing 20-minute lifestyle change consultations. So if you're in Bath, pop along, and we can have a face-to-face chat. But if not, if you can't make it, then, you know, those consultations are still on offer anyway, and just message me and we can organise something. So I've rattled on. I'm going to go now. So have a great evening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye bye.